702.
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
Leigh Joy joins us right now. Leigh, lovely seeing you as usual. Welcome.
Thank you, Thabo. It's so good to see you too.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a very interesting topic, how a baby can rock a relationship, and you brought your baby with you.
My oldest, Sebastian,
Yeah.
is so good to have him in studio. I think I'm going to shock him a little bit today.
Yeah.
We're going to be controversial, but hey, let's. My real point today is to help men and women and moms and dads understand each other from a husband and wife point of view when having babies.
Yeah, and I mean, at times we feel that a relationship needs a baby, but a baby does not always deliver great news for the life of a relationship, does it, Leigh?
Yeah, I think from a family point of view, you know, women go through and men go through a shake-up with regards to identity when they become parents. And I find that women struggle more with it than what men do. Men embrace that title quite easily. There's pressure on both sides because we're raised by parents, right, that have made mistakes.
Yes.
So if I speak about myself as a mother, there were things that my mom did that were not great, that I hope to God that I don't repeat. And then in some ways I have repeated, and it has shaken me up a bit as a mother.
Yeah.
Sorry, Seb. And
yeah.
There are other things that she's done really great that I hope to have emulated that I have and haven't. So my identity or our identity as parents is hugely affected by how we were raised, positively and negatively.
Yes.
So putting on that hat of parent becomes a very serious thing for us. We take that responsibility seriously. I think what's different, Thabo, for men and women is, if I can be graphic, when women have had a baby and their babies cry, their breasts secrete milk naturally.
Really?
It naturally just happens.
Yeah.
So if you think of it from a primal point of view, a woman is more physiologically primally geared to nurture a child.
I see.
So the impact and the intensity of being a mother is greater than what a man experiences. The role of nurturing a young child is also usually mainly sits at the feet of women. Not to say that men are not involved.
Sure.
I think today men are way more involved than ever before, which is really beautiful to see, because the bond between dad and child is strengthening, which is great. We're moving away from fatherless, or hoping to move away from fatherless societies.
Yeah.
But I think where the rubber hits the road is that women over-identify as mothers and they lose their focus as wives.
Yeah.
And men often feel, I mean, I'm getting more and more clients in this field, Thabo, where their children are 1, 2, or 3, and they're coming for therapy and going, I can't go on like this.
Yes.
Dads are like, I can't carry on feeling neglected.
Yeah.
And I've had patience and understanding with my wife around being a mother, but I can't carry on being a third wheel in the marriage.
And does that motherhood inclination or instinct, if you will, steal away sufficient attention from the relationship that is critical for maintaining the bond between the couple?
Absolutely. I was trying to think of you get touch deprivation, and then the opposite of touch deprivation is where you touch too much. So a mother is often the one holding the young child, so she gets touched a lot during the day. And they get to the evening, dads come home, you know, it's suicide hour, bathing babies, feeding babies, getting all young children to sleep. And dads come home and they've had a rough day, or the busy day at the office, and they need to just unwind, and then they get thrown with, and understandably and importantly, thrown with responsibilities. But they feel neglected. And often they'll say to me, I know this is quite harsh, but they'll feel like a sperm donor. They'll feel like, okay, the wife is, you know, it was great to get married, and there was love in the air, and then they took the next natural step of having a baby, or not natural step, because not everyone decides to have babies, but and then they have the baby, and they're as excited about having a baby as the mother is, but then they lose their wives.
And that then exposes the cracks in a relationship. Over and above issues that have been in existence, new issues are introduced. And something that is supposed to be great and wonderful for the couple tends to be a little bit negative. But how conscious of you as a couple should you be engaged? How aware must you be, intentionally so, of that moment in order to act appropriately?
I think there needs to be, like, the first 6 months are hard for everybody, right? With having a baby. I think that, physiologically women go through, there's a lot of blood loss the first 6 weeks. And there's sleepless nights. So a woman's energy is way less for the first 6 months. And some women stop breastfeeding at 6 months, so their hormones change, and there's postnatal depression as well that women experience, and they've seen a rise in postnatal depression because women have to go back to work so quickly. So there's that separation anxiety between them and their child. So there's lots of things that impact intimacy within a marriage early on in a relationship.
And I was just about to say that there's a prescribed time before intimacy can take place between birth and that particular period, so that it is, I suppose, physiologically okay for a mother to and a dad to be together. And during that time, is it somehow opening up an opportunity for undesirable effects on the relationship, where a dad or man or whoever wants to be intimate, but a mother can't?
Yeah, I think I was watching a video, and I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Jordan Peterson, but don't quote me quoting him. But someone said that if you're not going to show up 100% in your relationship, in whichever way that is, spiritually, physically, intellectually, creatively, emotionally, or sexually, you're forcing the other person to outsource that.
Oh man.
So we can't. And I often hear, like, a girlfriends in the past go, I just wish he'd grow up. I mean, doesn't he understand that I've got a baby?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's not really about growing up. It's about being neglected. He's being emotionally neglected. And maybe you're not able to give him the attention that you used to be able, because you're exhausted and tired, but maybe you can understand that he's feeling neglected. And often I'll speak to women about that in therapy, and I'll be quite open about it, and women will actually start crying, and they go, you know what, I feel neglected. I feel like my needs are not being met.
Yes.
I also miss making love. I also miss snuggling. I also miss being able to sleep late in the morning with my husband. I also miss just being able to get up and go and do things. But culturally, we're not allowed to, or we feel like we're not allowed to complain about our own lives, because, we should be so lucky that we've got a baby.
And I mean, speaking about culturally, Leigh, you would know, or perhaps not, that in some African cultural spaces, after giving birth, a woman is taken to her home, even if she's married, in order partly to avoid that interaction between the two of them, intimate interaction, so that she can heal properly, and this, that, and the other. And some other people may have other reasons as to why that is done. But I'm just thinking that space would need a partner to be definitely understanding that we are going to be in for a difficult time for the next 2 to 3 months. And I must bite the bullet, because I'm not the only one who's going through a rough time. My wife, my partner, is also experiencing the difficulties that I may not even understand. But that takes serious maturity to get to that point, especially when physiological needs are calling, and calling loudly.
Yeah. How long are women taken to their families for after birth?
To the 3 months often.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, 3 months. It varies. I mean, again, I want to put this out there so that I'm not shot by the listeners and throttled. African culture is not homogeneous. You can have Zulu people, Botswana, and whoever else within the same ethnic group doing things completely differently. So I just want to put that as a disclaimer out there, that it's not across the board. But generally, it's about 3 months. 3 months. And no one should see the baby for 3 months as well, if you're not family.
Oh, interesting. From a germ point of view.
Spiritual gems. Let's call them spiritual gems. But we'll come and talk about it. And I'm sure you want to weigh into this discussion with Leigh. Feel free to do so. 011-883-0702. Alternatively, send a voice note to 072-702-1702.
702
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
We are with Leigh Joy, dating coach, and she's in studio with us. The segment is called Relationship Focus and how a baby can rock a relationship. I'd love to know from you, has your baby rocked your relationship? For the better or for worse, has your baby brought in a new dynamic that was not there? How did you deal with it with your partner? And I hope it didn't lead, obviously, to the end of your relationship. But if it did, please let us know. 011-883-0702. Of course, a baby is a bundle of joy, but an introduction of a baby in a marriage, a relationship can change things. I'd love to know from you, how did you handle that? Did you go for counseling? Did you feel neglected somehow, that this person has changed completely? Yes, I love the baby, but it looks like I've lost my partner now. How did you navigate those waters? Very difficult, very difficult. I know in some relationships, some people would want or insist on having a baby, thinking that it would cement things. It would somehow hold everyone together despite the challenges that are there. But at times it does the exact opposite. 011-883-0702, 011-883-0702, or your voice note to 072-702-1702. Let's hear from you. Leigh, I'm just wondering, we were talking about maturity of both partners in this instance, but is there a better side or a positive side to this coin where a baby comes and you are closer than you used to be, and you love that space of being together? You share the responsibilities. This one wakes up on Tuesday to do the night duties of changing the nappies, the milk, and everything else. Are there instances where the baby really magnetizes people together?
Yeah, I think that if things are in balance, then where people are in the right position within the marriage. So where mom and dad are more important than baby. Obviously, if there's a crisis, then baby is the most important. I often with my clients sit and go, okay, cool, what is working?
Yeah.
What is it that you love about being a family? And the dads will be the first to jump up and say, I love seeing my wife as a mother. It's beautiful to see her nurturing a little person. I love seeing our child with some of my wife's qualities and some of my qualities.
Yeah.
I love how we can maybe argue about different parenting styles, but eventually come to an agreement. I love how we are navigating Saturday mornings and spending time together.
Yeah.
I love how there's some things that our child wants from our mother, but there are things that she wants from me too.
Yeah. And also, on the opposite end of that, can one parent feel a sense of resentment towards the child? I know it's not a very easy topic to discuss, and I'm sure it needs therapy on its own, but does that happen?
Well, that's the controversy that I wanted to speak about today, is that both do. Moms feel, and they won't necessarily speak about it. When you were speaking earlier about in some cultures that the child goes, at least the mother goes home for 3 months and surrounded by women, I think is really important, because to normalize, like a lady I know recently had a baby, and she's like, Leigh, I feel like I want to shake my baby sometimes. And I said, that's totally normal. It's good that you don't do that.
Yes,
but
please.
it's totally normal that you can look. And she says, but then like 30 seconds later, I'm crying and I feel guilty, and I just like this overwhelm of love for this child.
Yeah.
I said, it's completely normal. It's completely normal.
Yeah.
And dads, of course, feel like, of course, if they feel like sperm donors, they're going to feel resentful, and they are going to they don't have, not that it's not a profound connection,
yes,
but it's a different connection to mothers to their babies. So I've seen dads where the child's a little bit older, and the girls become daddy's girls, and then the dad's like, yes, I score now.
Yeah, definitely. Let me take some few calls, and I see that people have been calling, and let's just give them a chance with you. 011-883-0702. Mapula, you're calling from Mabopane. Hey, Mapula. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me, Thabo?
Now I can. Welcome, Mapula.
All right. Yes. Thank you. You know what, Thabo? The one angle I want to bring is the impact of babies towards teenage mothers. These days, the trend has been such that many teenagers become pregnant even while they are not even emotionally ready to become parents. And that has a huge impact on them and even the very people, or be it partners that they have made babies with. And this brings another dynamic around the impact of children born of, parents that were never ready for a baby, where we talk of children who then make babies after babies and they don't even know themselves, they're still babies, That has a huge, huge impact on the children's upbringing and the very emotional stability of the very children. I think it's quite important to look at this impact, but be that it may, when parents or partners have not navigated and planned the coming of a child, it has a huge impact. It disrupts everything about them, about their lives.
Yes.
So you find that the father is also as equally overwhelmed like the mother. And I think until we have this support system that properly helps women and men in terms of welcoming children, you surely are bound to find challenges. Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I'll get Leigh to respond, Mapula, to what you've said in a second. But first, let's go to Cedric, also in the same neck of the woods in Pretoria. Cedric, hi.
Hi, Thabo. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome.
I also wanted to make a comment, and my experience when my wife and I had our daughter last year was that we consulted widely, but we were very specific about the advice we took on. And even though there was some pressure that as a father and a husband I should do this, and that as a wife and as a mother that she should do that, we decided what was going to work for us.
Yes.
And so I spent from day one, from when my daughter was born, we decided that my wife wasn't going anywhere. We were going to be the two of us at home, and we were going to rough it out and learn this thing together. And 8 months later, everything is still going well. Intimacy is good. We are stronger as parents together. But I think the principle that I picked up in our process was consult widely, but be very specific about what you take on and agree with your partner on what's going to work for your relationship without letting external pressures influence you.
Specifically yours, hey, Cedric, that's what I'm hearing, that it could be tailor-made to you because you are a unique couple.
Yeah, that's 100% it. We've decided to have this child together. We've decided that we would be married. And so it is up to us to decide how we want to raise our child, the type of culture we want to create in our home.
Yeah.
And I think we stood by that. And we got a lot of advice, but we decided what we were going to do for us, and we hold it.
Cedric, thanks very much for that. Really appreciate it. Leigh?
Firstly, Mapula, thank you for phoning in. Emotional maturity plays a huge role in the development of a child. Teenage pregnancies, the impact socially, from a community point of view. We could do a show just on that.
Yes.
Cedric, I love that what you shared with us now, and it's exactly my point, that couples that work together stay together.
Yeah.
Couples that pray together stay together. And I think that where there is a deep understanding of each other's needs as husband and wife, as mom and dad, and as individual people, so they have three different hats that they're allowed to interchange, can raise really healthy, well-balanced children.
Very much interested. We'll come back with Leigh. Very quite not disturbing, but interesting discussion around what a baby can do to your relationship. I'd love to hear from you about your experience. How did your baby change your relationship, if there was change at all? How did you deal with it with your partner? Did you sit down and talk, or did you think, let this just be unspoken? Feelings of guilt, feelings of neglect, feelings of rejection, were they there? 072 702 1702. That's where you can send your voice notes. 11:30.
702
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
Leigh Joy is relationship expert and she joins us right now in studio. She's been with us for the past couple of minutes or so, and we're talking about how a baby can rock a relationship. Leigh, we've touched on all these things and I'm sure you have more that you want to share with us. Relebohile just brought in another thing that, the baby depends on both of you to get things going. I'm just wondering what happens should that relationship end because of a baby? And I'm sure there are some relationships that ended because of that. How do you then reconcile parenting? What do you do? Is it the end of the world? Someone may feel guilty that, listen, the baby ended this relation. I shouldn't have acted that way. But in an adult world, it just does come to that I'll find another person who can give me love, who can give me attention, and this is not what I signed up for.
So often children feel like they're the fault of a divorce, and it's not really fair to put the blame at children's feet. And I don't really want to blame the parents either.
Yes.
But for the parents to take responsibility for how they did show up in the relationship, right? And babies often show cracks in a relationship. They often show, some people go like, let's have a baby and let's, make our relationship stronger. But often a baby will show where the foundations of a relationship are cracked. That's okay. One can work on that. I often, when I have clients come and see me, I work independently with the mothers, help them develop a self-care practice that's holistic and balanced for them so that they show up in a way in their own lives that their own dreams come true.
Yes.
I work with the fathers as well, do the same thing, create a self-care practice for them. And then I work with the couple as well. And often the young parents that come and see me, as with most couples, they haven't been taught a communication style. So being able to share feelings and have those validated is really important. And also maybe to sit at different sides of the coin, have differing opinions, but still at least just hear each other out. So you're saying that marriages end because of children. I think that it's more so that people's self-care is really poor, their ability to communicate with each other is poor, and maybe people not being honest with themselves about their stage of life or whether they are ready to have a child.
Yes. Let me take some texts that have come through on 072 702 1702. And this one says, I'm just trying to open it up here. I know there are different opinions on this, but sleep training really helped us. We were able to have our baby in her own room and sleeping through the night by 10 months, which meant that we could also sleep and we were not chronically exhausted and shot with each other. Another text, Leigh, says, hi, what advice do you have for a couple who have a baby for the first time and live far away from family and friends and have no other support around them, especially if there's a high risk of postnatal depression and the father has to keep working and can't be at home all day to help out beyond 2 weeks of paternity leave?
It's tough. I had postnatal depression with both my kids. And I had a lot of support with both. I had great support with my son and some support with my daughter. The guilt that goes with postnatal depression is very overwhelming. And prohibits people from reaching out, and actually one isolates more, which means that we have even less support. So we are with urbanized societies, we are finding that we are more and more isolated from our families, and we feel less and less, feel less and less empowered to be able to ask for support.
Yeah.
That's why it's really beautiful to go and do like moms and tots if they've got that in your area, or like the different go and meet other mums that have got the same stage babies.
Yeah.
Go to the park, get out.
Yeah.
And that's where the self-care practice that I create becomes really valuable because people create a life outside of being a mother
Yeah.
and outside of being a wife. So yeah, it's a great question, a really important question.
Great. Feel free to send those text messages through to 072-702-1702. And I see one from Wonful. Thank you so much, Wonful. I missed you too. 011-883-0702. Abel, let's go to the voice notes. I see that I have not been touching on those.
Mona Lisa here. So I had my baby last year, November. I kid you not, a baby will change everything. I'm telling you that we've had to sit down and discuss everything as in a way forward, because now all the attention has been on the baby. He feels like I'm loving the baby more than him. He feels like I don't care about him anymore. Yet, when I gave birth to my baby, he had to stay in the hospital for like 5 days. So I grew this worry in me that I felt like I have to do everything perfect. So he was also like, oh, you want more extra carefulness on the baby, as if he's also not my baby. But yeah, it's been real, hey? But yeah, we're working on our relationship now. We had to sit down and consider that we now have a third person in the family, and we have to still be there for each other. Hope you're well.
Leigh?
Yes, thank you, Mona Lisa. That's exactly it. There was a gentleman who phoned in, Cedric. He was saying that they consulted far and wide. But I think that, and I'm sure all of us that have had kids can say that nothing prepares you for having a child. Nothing prepares you for the joy that you're going to experience, to see this your heart crawling outside of your body for the rest of your life. But also looking at the changes that happen within a relationship. I don't think that these difficulties need to be, we don't need to be negative about it, and that it doesn't have to be all encompassing. I just feel like it's not necessarily something that we openly talk about without guilt, both men and women. And I really just wanted to offer this opportunity to normalize feelings of guilt, feelings of resentment, feelings of frustration, feelings of neglect and abandonment and rejection. And that there's nothing wrong with you. You're not being a child. You're not being irresponsible. There's space for all of those feelings. And I love what Mona Lisa says is how they sat down and they spoke it through. Cedric as well sat down, spoke it through, and said, how are we going to do this as a couple?
Sure. Joshua is calling us from Ilovo. Joshua, hi. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. My question is a little bit different to the other callers, but in my situation, we split up before my daughter was born. And ever since my daughter was born, trying to communicate absolutely anything from what clothes I should get my daughter and what toys she would want and anything really, there's absolutely zero communication from the mother's side. And I find that I've got a small group of fathers that are in the same situation that I found on the Facebook group, and we meet every now and again. And it seems that it's always on the mother side that they don't want to communicate and have open dialogue when it comes to raising the child together. What advice would you have on that?
Leigh, over to you.
Thank you, Joshua. There's such a valuable and important conversation to be had. There's often feelings of rejection from a father that women then project onto the children. And it is very, very, very damaging. It's a big reason why we sit with fatherless societies is because women stand in the way of the relationships with the father and the children. I'm very passionate about this topic, and I work very strongly with women in this space and encourage them to and I think in our legal system only changed recently, where access and maintenance are two different things. So previously women could withhold access if they didn't receive maintenance.
Yes.
Now it's illegal. You can't do that. So there was a big manipulation on some women's parts where they were like, well, you're not going to, if you don't pay me, you don't get access to your children.
Yeah.
Which led to a big part in why we have a fatherless society.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. 011-883-0702, 011-883-0702. I'd love to hear from you if you've just joined us. Leigh Joy is my guest, and she's a relationship coach. She's in studio with us. How a baby can rock a relationship. At times in a relationship, a baby's not just great news. A baby can bring about a dynamic that is not necessarily wanted, and there could be feelings of resentment. I was just asking you, what do you make of that? 072-702-1702.
Join us.
Let's walk the talk.
This is 702.
072-702-1702 for your voice notes. I would love to hear from you.
Hi, Thabo. There's one important factor that does not get as enough attention as it's supposed to. That is society's expectations with regards to parenthood. Because it is automatically expected that because I am married or because I'm a woman, children are the next step.
Sure.
And never paying attention to what I want as a person. Like, what if I am not built for motherhood? What if that is not something that I'm interested in, but I would simply succumb because it is expected of me? How would I be a good mother if I had no interest in motherhood? I did it simply because it was what was expected of me, and I think we need to also look at that. You're speaking to Sheila.
Sheila, a very, very pertinent point that you've just put onto the table. Leigh?
Sheila, thank you. Yes, I alluded to that earlier in the interview, where there is this, how do I say it without sounding mean, that women that have babies are more valuable, in inverted commas, than women that don't. Mm. And I think that we need a society where there are different types of role models for our children. I think that aunts are really, really important people in our children's lives, as are uncles. So I think that, Sheila, thank you for having the courage to share that. I think it's important for us to speak more about it. And I think there are more and more millennials that don't want to have children,
yes,
because they see how overpopulated the world is.
Yes.
And also how expensive it is to raise a child. So, and grandparents kind of like, you're not going to give me grandchildren. And like, you're also like your value is you're not as valuable to me.
Yeah.
Which sounds terrible, but yes, I see what Sheila's saying.
And speaking of grandparents, they can also be a dynamic in a relationship that has a new baby, isn't it, Leigh?
Totally. I mean, I remember when I became a grandmom, I call myself a glammy because I'm too young to be a granny. Beautiful little Leah. Yeah. And how, I'd experienced and witnessed grandparents being super controlling. Mm. And I tried not to be controlling, but I noticed that I still messed up. We still make mistakes.
Yes.
Because our children are going to be different parents than what we were. Mm. So they were very gracious towards me in the learning curve. So it is, I see it with my clients as well. The husband will be like, oh my gosh, like my father-in-law drives me nuts, or my mother-in-law drives me nuts. And they really need to have some boundaries around how they try and tell us to raise our child.
And I mean, they could be leaning towards one side or the other, the grandparents, that is. And perhaps they want to have the baby more often than not than the other grandparents, maternal or paternal, whichever side. And the baby spending more time with one set of grandparents can also be an issue.
Yeah, there's jealousy, right? There can absolutely be jealousy and also feelings of inadequacy, I guess. But it also depends on space and time. Like my baby's or grandbaby's in PE and I'm here. So I'm very sad that I don't get to spend time with her. Yeah. But I'm just really grateful that the other granny and grandpa are there that can spend time.
And I suppose for the difficult part towards the tail end of our discussion, Leigh, what do you do? What do you say to a partner when you see these things unfolding? Because life is not like a textbook. It's just doesn't go in a chronological way. Things come up and you're thinking, I'll raise these issues a little bit later, and time passes. What is the right way of sitting your partner down and saying, look, this is happening. I suggest this and the other, because they are also in a new space. You can't completely blame them. They are trying to survive in this new environment as well. What is the right way of doing it?
I think the first and foremost is sharing feeling without expecting a solution. Because sometimes just being heard, just being like, I feel left out, I feel like you love the baby more than me, and not having someone get defensive and argue a point that it isn't like that. But just being able to share a feeling, I think, is really important. Because in the beginning, the first few months, one does feel like, oh my gosh, I've got to do everything to keep this baby alive. So there is that panic. And then to sit down and maybe to look at a little further down the line, okay, well, what kind of changes can we make? Sometimes mothers feel overwhelmed because they're taking too much on. And not because the husband or the father doesn't want to take responsibility, just because they feel over-identified with the position of responsibility. And then later on, I'll hear mothers say, the father's so useless, he doesn't show any initiative in taking care of the child. And I was like, did he ever? And he's like, yeah, when baby was younger. I said, so what changed?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh gosh, I never gave him an opportunity to show up as a father.
Yeah.
And any parent, mothers, I'm sounding really tough on women today, but I think that why I'm being so tough on women is because I want to offer women more of an opportunity to step aside and allow fathers to be fathers and to make mistakes just like we make mistakes as mothers.
Sure.
To give yourselves an opportunity to feel loved and not neglected.
Yeah.
And to find a balance within the family so that all three of you can thrive, or all you, the mom and dad, and the children can thrive.
How do people reach you, especially those who've been listening and thinking, I need to spend more time with Leigh. I've got this problem and I really want it sorted out. How do people reach you?
Get hold of me on WhatsApp on 079 525 8991. And then on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, it's Leigh Joy Inspires.
Leigh Joy Inspires, and she does indeed. Leigh, always a pleasure having you. Great talking to you. Let's do it again very soon.
I look forward to it. Thabo, God bless you and have a beautiful weekend.
I wish you the same.